I map threats for a living, spotting danger before it strikes. Yet I missed the deadliest threat in my own home. When my wife handed me divorce papers with that smug smile, she thought she'd won. She didn't know I'd already discovered her Paris escape plan with my money and her lover. Her perfectly orchestrated betrayal was about to backfire spectacularly. My name is Warren Flannery. I'm 45 years old, and I've spent the last 20 years protecting high-profile individuals from threats they never see coming. Ironic, isn't it? I can spot a potential assassination attempt from a mile away, but couldn't see the betrayal brewing in my own home. Boston's fall weather was just settling in when things started to unravel. The leaves were changing, and apparently, so was my wife. Melanie had built her reputation as one of the city's top luxury event planners. Galas, charity functions, political fundraisers. She orchestrated them all with military precision. I was proud of her success, even when it meant late nights and busy weekends. That's marriage, right? Supporting each other's dreams. The first red flag appeared during Senator Harrison's re-election fundraiser. I was handling his security detail while Melanie managed the event. Simple, routine, we'd done this dance dozens of times. But that night, I noticed something different in how she interacted with Philip Blackwood, the senator's new finance director. Too much laughter, too many touches that lingered just a second too long. Professional courtesy doesn't include brushing imaginary lint off someone's lapel or whispering in their ear. Great event tonight, I told her on the drive home. The city lights reflected off the windshield as we crossed the Charles River. You and Blackwood seemed to hit it off. Melanie's fingers tightened around her phone. Who? Oh, Philip. Just networking. He handles major donors. Must be some networking. I haven't seen you laugh that hard at my jokes in years. She rolled her eyes. Don't start, Warren. It's called being personable. It's literally my job. I dropped it. 15 years of marriage had taught me which battles to pick. Besides, I trusted her. That was my first mistake. Over the next few weeks, Melanie's schedule suddenly became packed with client meetings and venue scouting. Always last minute, always running late. Her phone became an extension of her hand, screen always angled away from me. Passwords appeared on devices that had never been locked before. I'm not proud to admit that I ignored these signs. Kept telling myself she was just busy, just stressed about upcoming events. When you've built a life with someone, the last thing you want to believe is that they're dismantling it behind your back. Then came that damned Christmas party at the governor's mansion. That's when everything changed, when suspicion crystallized into certainty. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Some storms build slowly, gathering strength before they hit. This one had been brewing longer than I realized, and I was standing right in its path. The governor's Christmas party was always a high-security affair. State officials, business elites, and enough political power to run a small country, all mingling over champagne and holiday canapes. I'd handled security for the event 3 years running, which meant I knew every corner of the mansion, including the small study on the second floor that was supposed to be off-limits to guests. I was doing my usual sweep when I heard voices coming from behind the study's heavy oak door. Heated whispers, a woman's laugh. My instincts kicked in. Unauthorized guests in restricted areas were exactly what I was paid to prevent. I opened the door without knocking. Security privilege. Melanie was perched on the edge of the governor's desk. Philip Blackwood, standing between her knees, his hand resting on her thigh, far north of appropriate. They sprang apart like teenagers caught by parents, but not before I saw my wife's lipstick smeared across his collar. Warren. Melanie's voice hit a pitch I'd never heard before. I was just showing Philip the first edition books for a potential literary fundraiser. Right. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Literary fundraiser. In a restricted area. With the lights dimmed. Philip straightened his tie. All smooth confidence despite the damning evidence on his shirt. Sorry about that, Flannery. Didn't realize this room was off-limits. It's Mark Blackwood. I kept my tone professional, even as something primal urged me to rearrange his perfect teeth. As head of security, I'll have to report this breach. Warren, don't be ridiculous, Melanie hissed, sliding off the desk. You're overreacting. The cool calculation in her eyes hit harder than any slap. This wasn't embarrassment or guilt. This was annoyance at being interrupted. I need to finish my rounds, I said, stepping aside to let them pass. We'll discuss this at home. But we never did. Melanie fabricated an emergency with the caterer, leaving early with Philip to sort out. I stayed until my shift ended at 2 a.m., then drove home to an empty house. I waited up, nursing a bourbon, running the scene through my head on repeat. By the time she strolled in at 4 a.m., I'd moved past shock into something colder, more focused. "Don't start," she said immediately, dropping her purse on the counter. It wasn't what it looked like. Enlighten me then. I took another sip, watching her over the rim of my glass. What exactly did it look like when my wife had another man's hands up her dress? "You're being dramatic." She kicked off her heels. "Philip and I were discussing donor strategy." "Yes, we're flirtatious. It's networking. Nothing happened." "Melanie." I set my glass down. "I've spent my career reading people, spotting lies, assessing threats. Don't insult my intelligence." Her expression hardened. "Fine. Believe what you want. I'm going to bed." She walked away, leaving me alone with my bourbon and the realization that my marriage was in far more danger than I'd allowed myself to acknowledge. The warning signs had escalated into a full-blown alert. The question was, what was I going to do about it? In my line of work, suspicion isn't enough. You need evidence. After that night at the governor's mansion, I knew what I was dealing with, but confronting Melanie had only resulted in denials. For a month, I considered my options while keeping up appearances. Some might call it cowardly. I call it strategic patience. February brought a snowstorm that shut down most of Boston. Melanie was stranded at a client meeting, unable to make it home, or so she claimed. I used the opportunity to do what I should have done weeks ago. I started with her laptop. 15 years of marriage had given me certain advantages, like knowing her password patterns. She always used variations of her childhood dog's name combined with significant dates. Third attempt, bingo. Her email was organized with her typical precision. Work folders, personal correspondence, everything neatly labeled. Nothing immediately incriminating until I found a folder labeled PM Events, hidden inside another folder of tax records. PM, Philip Markham. The emails made me physically ill. Explicit messages, planned rendezvous disguised as business meetings, hotel confirmations. The earliest dated back 8 months. I photographed everything, then moved to her iPad. The messaging app revealed an entire second conversation hidden in the archive section. More of the same, including plans for an upcoming weekend in New York, a business conference that apparently involved only one hotel room. The final blow came from her planner. Melanie was old school about scheduling, keeping a leather-bound calendar despite having everything digitized. Hidden behind her desk drawer was this year's version, with certain dates marked only with a discreet P and a heart. Those dates matched perfectly with her late nights and client emergencies. I didn't feel the rage I expected, just a cold, clarifying certainty. I replaced everything exactly as I'd found it, then retreated to my home office to plan my next move. Sun Tzu said, "Every battle is won before it is fought." This was one battle I intended to win. By the time Melanie returned the next day, looking suspiciously refreshed for someone who'd supposedly slept in her office during a blizzard, I had mapped out every step of what came next. "Rough night?" I asked casually over coffee. "Horrible." She yawned theatrically. "The office couch is torture. We lost power for a few hours, too." I nodded sympathetically, noting the lie from my mental file. "That New York conference is next weekend, right? The one you mentioned." Her eyes flickered with momentary panic before she composed herself. "Yes, important clients flying in from Europe. Probably 3 days, maybe 4. Need me to drive you to the airport?" No. Car service is easier with all my materials." I smiled. "Whatever works best for you." That afternoon, I called Courtney, Melanie's younger sister. We'd always gotten along well, and I suspected she might know more than she let on. "Uncle Warren." My niece Zoe answered instead. "Are you coming to my recital this weekend? Mom says Aunt Melanie can't make it because she's going to New York." In the background, I heard Courtney's panicked voice. "Zoe, who are you talking to?" I had my confirmation. Now I just needed to finalize my plan. I'd always respected Melanie's friendships, never interfering or prying. That changed the night before her New York conference, when I received a call from her assistant, Jessica. It was nearly midnight when my phone rang. Jessica had never called me directly before, and certainly never this late. Warren, I'm sorry to bother you. She began, her voice tight. I wouldn't call if it wasn't important. What's going on, Jessica? I sat up in bed, immediately alert. It's about Melanie, and She took a deep breath. You need to know something. Philip Blackwood isn't just taking her to New York. They're planning to leave the country afterward. Paris. I saw the tickets on his desk. One way. The revelation hit like a physical blow. How certain are you about this? 100%. I overheard them discussing selling the business. Warren, I think they're planning to relocate permanently. Why are you telling me this? I needed to assess her motives. Because it's wrong, Jessica said firmly. My father cheated on my mother. I watched it destroy her. I can't be part of this. After hanging up, I sat in the darkness, processing this new information. Melanie wasn't just having an affair. She was planning to abandon our entire life together, possibly embezzling from her business in the process. I checked the time, 12:30 a.m. Melanie was at a client dinner and wouldn't be home for hours. Plenty of time to accelerate my plans. First, I called my attorney's emergency line, briefly explaining the situation. Then I contacted my bank, initiating the separation of our joint accounts that I'd prearranged weeks ago. By 2 a.m., I'd secured our important documents, changed passwords on our shared accounts, and transferred my personal belongings to a secure location. The emotional detachment surprised me. Instead of heartbreak, I felt the same focused clarity that took over during high-risk security operations. Identify the threat, neutralize it, protect the assets. When Melanie finally came home at 3 a.m., reeking of expensive cologne that wasn't mine, I pretended to be asleep. Let her enjoy her last night of deception. Tomorrow would bring a reckoning she wasn't prepared for. I'd spent my career protecting others from external threats. Now it was time to protect myself from the one person I never imagined I'd need defense against. Morning arrived with Boston's typical February chill. I'd been awake for hours, reviewing my strategy, ensuring nothing was left to chance. Melanie emerged from our bedroom at 8 a.m., already dressed in an expensive suit, rolling the designer luggage she'd purchased last month. You're up early, she commented, surprise evident in her voice. I thought you'd sleep in since it's Saturday. Wanted to see you off, I replied, sliding a cup of coffee toward her. Big conference and all. She took the coffee cautiously, eyes narrowing at my pleasant tone. Right. Should be back Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. Paris weather is beautiful this time of year, I hear. I kept my voice conversational, watching as the color drained from her face. Her cup froze halfway to her lips. What are you talking about? Your one-way tickets to Paris with Philip. After your New York charade, of course. Her stunned expression confirmed everything Jessica had told me. She recovered quickly, switching tactics from denial to attack. You've been spying on me? Going through my things. She slammed the cup down, coffee splashing across the counter. That's low, Warren, even for you. Lower than 8 months of infidelity? Lower than planning to clean out our accounts before abandoning your marriage. I remained perfectly calm, which clearly unnerved her. You don't understand. Philip and I. Save it, Melanie. I understand perfectly. I've seen the emails, the hotel receipts, the plans to sell your business. The only thing I don't understand is how easily you threw away 15 years. Her face hardened into something unrecognizable. The mask was off now. Fine. Yes, Philip and I are together. He appreciates me, values my ambition. We're building something real, something exciting. On a foundation of lies and theft, I added. Classy. She reached for her purse, pulling out an envelope. I was going to mail these before leaving town, but since we're being honest, she tossed the envelope on the counter. Divorce papers. Already filed. I'm not coming back, Warren. The smugness in her expression as she pushed the papers toward me, the absolute certainty that she'd blindsided me, almost made me laugh. I picked up the envelope, examined it briefly, then smiled. Let's see how your lover reacts when he discovers there's nothing left to steal. Her confidence faltered. What do you mean? Our accounts were separated yesterday. Your access to my pension, investments, and savings has been terminated. The house is in my name alone. Check the refinancing papers you signed last year without reading. Panic flickered across her face. You can't do that. I already have. Oh, and Philip's wife received an interesting package this morning. Copies of all your correspondence. His personal and business accounts should be frozen by now. Melanie stumbled backward, gripping the counter for support. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone, showing her the confirmation emails from my attorney. I've been protecting high-value targets for 20 years. Did you really think I wouldn't protect myself? Melanie's composure shattered completely. You've ruined everything. She grabbed her phone, frantically dialing Philip. No answer. I remained seated, watching the panic escalate with each failed attempt to reach her lover. What did you do? She demanded, voice rising hysterically. Nothing illegal. Just made sure relevant parties had all the facts. I sipped my coffee. Your boyfriend's wife, his business partners, the IRS fraud department. Everyone deserves to know what they're dealing with. Her phone buzzed with an incoming text. The color drained from her face as she read it. Philip's accounts are frozen. His wife changed the locks. Her voice was hollow. He says it's my fault, that I must have been careless. Philip strikes me as the type to need someone to blame, I observed. Not exactly husband material, after all. Melanie's eyes flashed with anger. You had no right. This was my chance at real happiness. Your happiness built on my destruction isn't happiness I'm obligated to facilitate. Her phone buzzed again. As she read the message, her expression shifted from anger to disbelief. He's backing out. Says it's too complicated now, too messy. She looked up, shell-shocked. He's staying with his wife, trying to salvage what he can. I wasn't surprised. Men like Philip didn't have the spine for real consequences. They thrived in the shadows, feeding on deception and stolen moments. What am I supposed to do now? She asked, collapsing into a chair. That's not my problem anymore. I stood, gathering the divorce papers. I'll have my lawyer contact yours. I suggest finding a hotel until the proceedings are finalized. I can't afford a hotel, she whispered. Everything's tied up in the business, and we just signed the lease on the new office space. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. You should have thought of that before planning your grand escape. The guest room is yours for 1 week. After that, you're on your own. As I turned to leave, she called after me, voice breaking. I did love you once, you know. I paused at the doorway. The difference between us, Melanie, is that I loved you until yesterday. You stopped loving me 8 months ago and kept pretending. That makes you the better actor, but me the better person. Walking away from 15 years of marriage should have felt monumental, earth-shattering. Instead, it felt like setting down a heavy weight I'd carried too long. The woman in my kitchen, crying over another man, wasn't the Melanie I'd married. Perhaps she never had been. 1 week after confronting Melanie, I returned from work to find the guest room empty, her belongings gone without a note or forwarding address. Fine by me. Clean breaks heal faster. I was sipping bourbon on the back deck, watching the sunset paint Boston's skyline, when my cell phone rang. Courtney's name flashed on the screen. Melanie's sister and I had always gotten along, but we hadn't spoken since everything fell apart. Warren, she said when I answered. Do you have a minute? From my favorite sister-in-law? Always. Probably your only sister-in-law now, she replied with a surprising lightness. Listen, I wanted you to hear this from me. Melanie showed up at my place 3 days ago, asking to stay just until things settle. I said no. The directness of her statement caught me off guard. You turned your sister away. My sister stopped deserving loyalty when she planned to drain your accounts and run off with that snake Philip. Courtney's voice hardened. Mom and Dad agree. They refused to take her calls. I hadn't expected this level of support from Melanie's family. That couldn't have been an easy position to take. Easier than you'd think. Remember Thanksgiving 4 years ago, when I caught my ex-husband with his assistant? She sighed. Melanie told me I should work it out, because marriage takes compromise. Apparently, her advice only applies to other people. Where is she now? Despite everything, I found myself wondering. Hotel, I guess. Or maybe with a friend from work. The point is, we're not enabling her. Actions have consequences. After hanging up, I found myself strangely moved by Courtney's solidarity. In my security work, I'd seen countless powerful people surrounded by enablers who excused their worst behaviors. Melanie had clearly expected the same protection from her family. The next morning, my attorney called with an update. Melanie's lawyer requested an emergency hearing to contest the financial separations. Judge denied it. Everything stays frozen until the divorce is finalized, and her claims to the house, Dismissed. The refinancing was completely legal. She signed knowingly, even if she didn't read the fine print. Unless she can prove coercion, which she can't, the property remains solely in your name. A weight lifted from my shoulders. The legal safeguards I quietly put in place years ago, safeguards Melanie had ridiculed as paranoid, were holding firm. Later that afternoon, as I was reviewing security protocols for an upcoming diplomatic visit, my receptionist buzzed. "Mr. Flannery, there's a Jessica Taylor here to see you. Says it's important." I recognized the name immediately. Melanie's assistant, the one who'd warned me about the Paris plan. She sat across from me, visibly nervous. "I got fired yesterday." Melanie accused me of betraying her. Did she mention specifics? Jessica shook her head. Didn't have to. She knew I was the only one who saw the Paris tickets. She straightened her shoulders. "I'm not sorry I told you. What they were planning was wrong. I appreciate what you did," I said sincerely. "What can I do for you?" "I need a job. I have references, experience handling complex logistics, client management skills." I raised a hand, stopping her. "Actually, my team needs an administrative coordinator. Someone detail-oriented who can handle sensitive information with discretion." Her eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Very. You demonstrated integrity when it would have been easier to look the other way. That's exactly the kind of person I want working for me." As she left with employment paperwork in hand, I reflected on how crises reveal people's true character. Melanie had shown hers, but so had Courtney, Jessica, and others who'd chosen integrity over convenience. 6 weeks after Melanie's departure, life had established a new rhythm. Work kept me busy with a series of high-profile diplomatic events. Home was quieter but peaceful. I'd thrown myself into renovating the kitchen, a project Melanie had postponed for years despite our ample savings. I was selecting cabinet hardware when my phone rang. Colton, my cousin who worked as a detective in the financial crimes unit. "You sitting down, Warren?" he asked without preamble. "Should I be?" "Probably. Remember those rumors about Philip Blackwood misappropriating campaign funds?" Turns out they weren't rumors. I set down the catalog. "Go on." "His accounts were audited after your evidence package triggered investigations. They found a pattern going back years, skimming from political campaigns, donor fraud, tax evasion. The works." "And Melanie?" Unclear if she knew the extent, but she definitely benefited. "Those weekend trips, high-end restaurants, designer clothes, all paid with embezzled funds." I processed this silently. Melanie's business had always been successful, but her lifestyle had accelerated dramatically this past year. "There's more," Colton continued. "Philip tried to flee the country yesterday. Airport police detained him at Logan. During questioning, he claimed Melanie masterminded everything, that he was manipulated. Classic rat abandoning the ship. Sound like Philip," I muttered. "Here's where it gets interesting. They executed a search warrant on Melanie's new apartment this morning. Found documents indicating she was planning to access offshore accounts Philip had established. She was arrested 2 hours ago." The news left me momentarily speechless. I'd expected consequences for Melanie, but not criminal charges. "What happens now?" I finally asked. "She's being booked on conspiracy charges, possibly more depending on what the investigation uncovers. Thought you should hear it from me before it hits the news." After hanging up, I walked through the house, absorbing the implications. The woman I'd built a life with was now facing potential prison time. I should have felt vindicated, perhaps even satisfied. Instead, I felt a complicated mix of emotions I couldn't quite name. My doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. Standing on my porch was a woman I'd never seen before, professionally dressed with a serious expression. "Mr. Flannery? I'm Ellie Chambers with the FBI's Public Corruption Unit. I apologize for the unexpected visit, but we need to ask you some questions about Melanie Flannery and Philip Blackwood." I invited her in, offering coffee, which she accepted. As we sat in my living room, Agent Chambers explained the expanding investigation into political fraud involving multiple campaigns Philip had worked on. "We don't believe you were involved," she clarified, "but you might have information that could help our case." "I'll tell you whatever I can," I agreed, though Melanie and I haven't exactly been in communication recently. Agent Chambers nodded sympathetically. "So I've heard. For what it's worth, your evidence was instrumental in breaking open a fraud case we've been building for months." For the next 2 hours, I answered her questions, provided additional documentation, and pieced together a timeline of Melanie's suspicious activities. Throughout our conversation, I found myself impressed by Agent Chambers' thoroughness and professionalism. As she was leaving, she handed me her card. "If you think of anything else, please call." And she hesitated. "I'm sorry about your marriage. No one deserves that kind of betrayal." 6 months after Melanie's arrest, my life had found a new equilibrium. The divorce was finalized, the house renovations complete, and my security firm had landed several prestigious international contracts. I'd moved forward, one deliberate step at a time. I was reviewing protocols for an upcoming diplomatic summit when Ellie Chambers called. In the months since our first meeting, we developed a professional rapport, occasionally meeting for coffee to discuss case developments. "Warren, I have news," she said. "Melanie accepted a plea deal this morning. 18 months in minimum security, plus cooperation in the broader investigation against Philip." I absorbed this silently, surprised by my lack of emotion. That's considerably less than what Philip's facing, I assume. Much less. He's looking at 15 to 20 years. Turns out he was running schemes with multiple political campaigns, using various women as fronts. Melanie was just the latest. The revelation shouldn't have surprised me, yet somehow it did. She wasn't special to him at all, was she? Not according to the evidence. She was useful, socially connected, professionally respected, married to someone with security clearance. The perfect cover. After hanging up, I walked through my backyard, processing this final chapter of Melanie's betrayal. She'd thrown away our marriage for someone who'd been using her all along. There was a certain bitter symmetry to it. My phone buzzed with a text from Courtney. "Heard about Melanie's plea deal. You okay?" "Better than expected," I replied truthfully. "Having dinner with the girls tonight, but free tomorrow if you want company." Our friendship had been an unexpected silver lining in this mess. What began as family obligation had evolved into genuine connection. We'd had dinner several times, sometimes with her daughters, sometimes just the two of us discussing life, recovery, moving forward. Later that evening, Ellie called again. "Sorry to bother you after hours, but I wanted to ask something off the record." She paused. "That security conference in Washington next month. Are you still presenting?" "Planning to." "Why?" "I'll be there representing the Bureau. Thought maybe we could grab dinner afterward." "Not work-related." The invitation caught me off guard, though not unpleasantly. "I'd like that," I found myself saying. Hanging up, I realized I was smiling. Life had a way of revealing unexpected paths just when you thought all roads were closed. 1 year to the day after Melanie handed me those divorce papers, I stood on the balcony of my hotel room in Washington, D.C., watching the city lights flicker to life at dusk. My presentation at the International Security Conference had gone well, better than expected, drawing interest from several foreign agencies. My phone buzzed with a text from Ellie. "Still on for dinner? Reservations at 8. Wouldn't miss it," I replied. We'd been seeing each other regularly for the past few months, gradually transitioning from professional contacts to something more personal. She understood the work I did, the demands it made. More importantly, she approached relationships with a straightforward honesty that was refreshing after years of Melanie's manipulations. As I adjusted my tie, I found myself reflecting on the journey of the past year. The pain and betrayal had faded, replaced by appreciation for the clarity they'd brought. I'd rediscovered parts of myself that had been slowly suffocating in my marriage. Independence, decisiveness, the ability to trust my instincts. Courtney had called yesterday with news. Melanie had been transferred to a minimum security facility in Connecticut, already positioning herself as a model prisoner. "She'll probably write a memoir and launch a comeback tour the minute she's released," Courtney had said with surprising humor. I realized I no longer cared what Melanie did. Her choices had consequences, as did mine. We were both living with them. Though my consequences included dinner with an intelligent, honest woman who saw me clearly and liked what she saw. Downstairs, Ellie was waiting in the hotel lobby, elegant in a simple black dress. Her face brightened when she spotted me. "How does it feel to be the star of the conference?" she asked as we walked to the restaurant. "Hardly the star," I laughed, though the Joint Chiefs representative did seem interested in our new threat assessment model. Our conversation flowed easily through dinner, touching on work, family, books, travel, the comfortable exchange of two people genuinely interested in each other's thoughts. I have something for you, she said as dessert arrived. She handed me a small envelope. Inside was a newspaper clipping announcing Philip Blackwood's sentencing. 23 years. Thought you might want closure, she explained. I had closure the moment I changed those locks, I replied, tucking the clipping away. But I appreciate the gesture. Later, walking back under the Washington monuments illuminated against the night sky, Ellie slipped her hand into mine. It felt right, not a replacement for what I'd lost, but something new, something honest. Life wouldn't always be this straightforward. There would be challenges, complications, perhaps even heartbreak. But I'd learned the most valuable lesson of all. Better to face truth, however painful, than live comfortably with lies.